Hello again. It is so good to have you back for another week as we walk through the Bible together. Today we're going to look at Exodus chapter 16 as the people of Israel are fleeing in the wilderness. They are leaving Egypt behind. They're heading to the promised land, but they got a problem. They got no food. And that's where our story picks up. And it is this interesting human drama. Part of the reason that these stories are still read thousands of years after they were written down, thousands of years after they occurred, is because it is a human drama. It is a human situation where these people are wrestling with the same kind of doubts and the same kind of things that we are dealing with. The circumstances and the particulars change from generation to generation. But human nature has always been the same. You took somebody out of the nation of Israel 3,400 years ago, and you put them here in Wisconsin in the year 2021. Once you get past the technology and the language issues, they're as human as any one of us. And the way they deal with stuff, fundamentally, they're the same. So let's take a look at this passage. This is just a really interesting passage. Okay. So, Exodus 16, what happens is the people of Israel have come out, and I love this. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve the entire assembly to death." I love that passage. I just do. Let me just own that one. I love that passage. And here's why. Because it illustrates everything I had just said about how human beings and human nature has not changed. I have seen this story. I have been in this story. I have been that one who's been there complaining. Where something has happened, you've been in this awful situation, and you get out of the awful situation. Excuse me, you get into that new thing. And you sit there and you're like, you know, this is bad now. It would have been better if we just died back then. We fall into this trap so often. And this is such human nature. I love this. And the romanticization, the nostalgia that kicks in, where they said, you know, there we sat around and there were pots of meat and we ate good food, all we wanted. If you read the beginning of the story, the Egyptian midwives were under orders to kill all the baby boys. They were trying to kill all the Israelites. And here they romanticize it. And am I picking on the Israelites? No. This is a human thing. This is what we do. I just want to point that out. There has always been a back to Egypt party. And it has always been part of our own hearts where we say, you know what? I want to go back there because I knew how things worked and I knew what was expected of me. So the story goes on, and God says to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven on all of you, and the people will go out each day and gather up enough for that day. In this way I will test them to see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day they are to prepare whatever they bring in, and that be twice as much as they are to gather on every other day." This is the Sabbath. He's giving them instructions because you're not doing any work on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the day of rest, of course. And so God instructs them. And, Moses and Aaron instruct them, just as God told them to. And so this, because I love this little dig that Moses gets in. "Because he has heard your grumbling against him, who are we that you should grumble against us?" And Moses just very pointedly is like, look, okay, you're mad at me, but you're really mad at God. Let's be honest about this. Again, the human condition. How often do we take it out on somebody who is not responsible simply because we can? Okay, Moses also said, "You will know what it is that the Lord gives you when he gives you the meat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You're not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Moses knows how to stick it to the people here too. This is just good literature. Moses said to Aaron, say to the entire community, come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And while Aaron was in the desert was speaking to the whole Israelite community, he looked towards the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard your grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread, and that you will know I am the Lord your God. And that evening quail came and covered the camp. And in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp, and when the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. And when the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is this? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Each one to gather as much as he need. Take an omar, that's probably about 2 quarts, for each person to have in your tent. And so they all gathered. Some gathered much, some gathered a little, and they measured, and if they didn't have enough, the one who gathered a little gave it to each other. They shared. It's good. All right. Now, anybody who kept it over, who had too much and they tried to store it, maggots ate it. And so Moses was angry. And this is what it did. I mean, so they're fed, and this is how they get fed in the wilderness. And this is how they survive in the wilderness for the 40 years, for this whole generation, from the time they come out of Egypt until the time they enter into the promised land. This is God providing for them. And I want to focus in on this story, first of all, because I love the story and the human drama of it, but mainly because it is a reminder of God's provision. So much of what we do in our lives, so much of what we focus on is just making sure that we've got enough. And we're always worried, especially in times of change, and especially in times of upheaval. We want to hang on. And we want to say, this is what I know. Even if it's not functional, even if it's not perfect, I know this, and I know how it works, and I know what to expect, and I know I can get, and I know what I'm going to do with it. And so we hang on really tight. Just like those Israelites who gathered more than they should and tried to hang on to the manna for the extra day. And it spoiled them. So often we do that. And what I want us to think about is how God provides for us. Not necessarily with the physical needs, not necessarily with the material needs, but with all the spiritual needs that we have. And knowing that we're continually blessed. There's a couple interesting parallels to think about with this. First of all, there is this beautiful passage in the Psalms where it says, thy word is a lamp unto my feet. I know a lot of us grew up with the Amy Grant song about that. And the important thing in that is the word is a lamp for our feet. Not for the whole path. It's not this giant searchlight that goes out from here to the horizon where we see every little bit. It is for right now, for our feet. When Jesus says to his disciples, this is one way for you to pray, he says, give us this day our daily bread. It's daily. It's not a month's supply. It's not a year's supply. And I mean, I know a lot of us are in this mode where it's, you know, coming out of COVID, where a lot of us people are just stocked up, and it's like, because we had to, because you never knew what was going to happen in the middle of a pandemic and all the supply chain knots knotted up. We get into this mode where we just wanted to hang on to stuff. And what this passage and all those other passages remind us is trusting God is a daily habit. It is something for us to do every day. So I hope this passage has been a blessing for you. I hope this has been a thought-provoking passage. I enjoy it. I find the whole story of Exodus to be one of the most human parts of the Bible, because you've got all these different people trying to make sense of what God is doing, trying to figure out things and working through all this stuff. I just love it in that. And if you have a chance, go through and just read the book of Exodus is just a wonderful session in that. So I'm going to wrap that up, and this will conclude our teaching time. Take a few minutes and get to know those people in your group, have a conversation about what the highs and lows were of your week, and then we'll pick it up with the discussion questions. Thank you. Okay, here's your first discussion question. This is a little bit of an icebreaker for you. When you say the good old days, what were the good old days for you? I always joke the 80s were the pinnacle of Western civilization. But what was that time period for you? And why? Okay, question 2. Think about this for the nation of Israel. They have fled out of Egypt, which was the richest and most powerful nation at the time. They'd gone through the Red Sea and come through the other side. And they knew they had to get to this land that God had promised them. What do you see as the issues for them? What spiritual, emotional, physical issues would they have faced? Think about this. You got this nation. The only thing you've got is what they can carry with them. What are they looking at? Okay, next question. You got the nation of Israel escaping from Egypt. They get this miraculous thing where God parts the Red Sea for them. 45 days later, they're sitting there grousing at God. They're complaining about their lack of food and everything else and saying it's better than we've been back in Egypt. Why do you think it only took 45 days to go from this miracle at the Red Sea to when they're complaining so bad? How do you think Moses felt about their complaints? Do you think he thought they were justified? And do you think those complaints were justified? Would God have provided the manna and the quail if they hadn't complained? What do you think would have happened there? It's a fun question, just as a little side note. Manna in Hebrew literally means, what is this? So they're sitting out there saying, what is this? I don't know. We'll just call it, what is this? What do you think manna was? Some people have proposed that it's literally food from heaven, bread from heaven that gets frosts the ground like dew. Others have suggested it's God providing insects, and they are grinding up the insects or doing other things to make that into bread and other parts of food. What do you think it is? It's God providing somehow. What manner is it that you think God provides the people of Israel their sustenance? What do you think God was trying to teach the people of Israel when he'd only let the manna last one day? How does it feel to know that God provides for all your needs? How well do you lean into that promise? God enforces the Sabbath by not providing manna on the day of rest. How well have you been doing at keeping the Sabbath? And what does that mean to you? Have there been things where God has miraculously provided sustenance for you? Tell others in the group about that. This concludes our session for today. I hope this has been a blessing for you. I hope this has been a wonderful time for you to get to know others and study the Word together. We are going to continue in this journey together through the Bible, and I hope you are enjoying it as much as I have. May the Lord bless and keep you. Bye.